says this to Anakin when he comes for training,
Yeah.
and he says he senses much fear in him, and
Mm.
that fear leads to anger, and
Mm.
anger leads to hate,
Yeah.
and hate leads to suffering,
Mm.
the path to the dark side, that
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
With the idea of like that suffering can also lead people into the darkness, into that
Mm.
like anger, or why am I suffering? Oh, I hate the thing that's making me suffer. Or no, why am I like the fear? It starts with the fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but like fear of suffering is probably what the fear is. So there's
Yeah.
a little bit of a circle there.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you think is the thing that takes one person into the direction of growing, like Goggins
Mm.
or many other people, like you're
Yeah.
saying, growing and becoming stronger, becoming better through the
Yeah.
suffering, and the other people kind of taking that and turning very toxic because of it?
Damien, you want to take
Well,
that one first?
well, I mean, at the end of the day, that anger leads to hate, and that downward spiral leads to suffering. And in that suffering, you know, once you've experienced all those emotions, then you can transmute it. So I think they all lead to the same space, because it's all fundamentally, we all stem from infinite unconditional love. So in order for us to learn our lessons, we get taken to suffering to transmute it into and let it go and move forward. So I think like the yin and yang, you go to the light and you have the darkness. So to understand the light, you need to go through darkness. To understand the darkness, you need to experience the light. So yeah. So I think suffering. Also, this is like, if a child's watching this, for example, or someone that's, and you say life is suffering, I think it can be like, well, that sucks. What's, you know, it really depends on your perspective of the word and your definitions of the word suffering. I would say, if you want to, I would say, like, we all have an internal compass. If it feels bad, then we know we're out of alignment with the truth. And if it feels good, then we know that we're in alignment with our truth. So I think the suffering or the feeling, like, there's many ways of looking at suffering. Some people, like David Goggins, has reached the point where I think suffering is his teacher. So that, and then that's why he can appreciate and go and search for that suffering and dig deeper into that, because he knows that that state of that feeling of that suffering or that pain or whatever it is him burning through the darkness with his own demons.
Yeah.
He's able to, in that state, be able to kind of transmute that. But in terms of life being, I think life is blissful if you are able to see it that way. There's an ever expanding blissful experience when you start to appreciate what suffering is doing for you, or, you know, so it's your relationship with the idea of suffering that I think is important. So like anyone that's, like, for example, watching can realize that it's life is a blissful journey, but your internal compass, whether it feels great, not so great, is just assisting you in aligning you to the path that's for your highest and best. So and that's it's simple, similar idea again to kind of like the kid in the stove. It's like, you know, your parents or anyone can tell you, don't do this. It's you know, it's leads to this, and you will go and touch it to realize, oh, that's not the most optimal path for me, because, you know, it can fuck up my finger or whatever if I do. So it's just kind of like putting you on the path. And I think suffering, like, it's like anything, and it's, again, perspective. Like David Goggins going through that, some people will sit on the couch and be like, I'll never experience that. But because David in his mind knows what he wants to achieve, or he wants to continue breaking those limitations, that he's willing to put himself in those situations, because he knows how worth it is at the end after that experience. He knows how much stronger he's become, and that is an orgasmic feeling. That is euphoria when you are able to look back having gone through that experience. Similar to the idea of there's another very interesting person to kind of look at is Wim Hof, who's kind of built that relationship with the cold, where it's that state of being where you put in. It's not something that it's like, you know, it's not something that it's super exciting to go sit in a freezing tub. But once you realize the benefits and how euphoric it feels after, you're willing to go through that suffering to learn and grow and to connect with yourself deeply. And I think that's what suffering brings you to. It brings you to that, how much are you willing to endure and detach from this physical world to observe it, and the suffering is just kind of like allowing you to really dig deep, to observe it. And this is why all the Zen folk and the monks and all that, in terms of their training, where they sit down and they meditate in the cave for many years, because they are there like observing, and they're strengthening themselves, and they recognize that they're doing it for a reason. They're doing it because they understand why they're doing it. It's not just like they're sitting in a cave and they're like, I know that this is the whole world now, and I'm sitting here because they know what it's benefiting them. They know that that's what they need to build up whatever it is that they're looking to build. So the Iceman, he knows that he can now climb up mountains and go to Mount Everest. That is amazing. That is what a life experience, to be able to go and climb up in a mountain at 80-year-old or 70 years old in shorts. That's cool. That's fun. It's that mental clarity that you get in that state. So yeah, that's to the bottom line is that I think suffering is not something to look at life and be like, oh, life is suffering. That is exciting. That is something that like we can all kind of like, okay, like we can all build that beautiful relationship with the idea of suffering, to know ourselves and see how much we're willing to endure. And that leads to bliss, that leads to all sorts of emotions. But once you've dealt with that suffering, how much stronger you become. Like, you know, and it's the same as those three guys at the beginning. Like, they're going through that suffering at the moment, but that much stronger they become thereafter, you know, once you've learned the lessons that you need to learn.
True. Very, very strong points, I would say, Damien. What's the most profound thing I found in what you said? I think you gave that that idea that you need to face yourself, and that's like the strength in the suffering. And when I think about it, meditation is the hardest thing someone can do. And the reason is because it forces you to be with yourself, and it forces you to be with your thoughts. Now, these could be about thoughts of gratefulness and unconditional love, like you said, Damien. And sometimes you've got your inner demons also coming out during that meditation session, where you see all that anger, all that rage, all that pain, all comes up. And they're both valid emotions. We need to acknowledge them for what they are. And I think instead of demonizing certain emotions, which some folks like to do, is we really need to find out what that emotion represents. Like Shams was saying last Saturday, that looking at it from as if a third person, like being very detached from it. And we were talking about something I went through, and we were like, yeah, it's as if a movie was playing, right? So that's what you do in meditation, actually. So, okay, I'm feeling this. Okay, what is it trying to teach me? Why am I feeling that way? Maybe it's just a mental trick, you know, because we call that makyo in Zen, meaning illusion. So, for example, if you feel all pumped up, you see all sorts of lights, you know, it's, I've become enlightened in this session, you know, now I see the world in a different way. It's just makyo. Meaning, no, man, it's just that your brain waves change a bit and then you're seeing lights. It's proven. Okay, so no enlightenment there. It's just a few tricks in the brain. And true enlightenment is seeing things with the naked eye. What that means is every time we're looking at something, we are analyzing, always saying, oh, that flower is beautiful. But if it's a bit dry, oh, it's not that beautiful. But no, I mean, it's as beautiful as the other one. It's just a different kind of beautiful, right? So we're constantly labeling and over-analyzing as per our perception, but things are just the way they are. So that's what it means looking with naked eyes, like, yeah, that's a rock, that's a tree, that's Damien, that's Shams, and that's it. You know, it's just the way it is. But we overanalyze, oh, you know, Damien is such a good rap singer. He's into this, he's into that. Yeah, these are just layers, right? But you're just Damien, right? But we overthink, and I think the Buddha was pulling their legs because they were thinking like, how many times I need to take birth to be liberated. Man, just focus on your life right now, what you have to do. So
The world is as it should be, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what you said to all of them?
Exactly. Life is as it should be, with the pain, with the laughter, with the gratefulness, with the love, with the heart being broken, with the betrayal, with people stabbing you in the back, stabbing you in the heart. But there are moments where you are with friends, with family. I mean, it's all life and it's all sacred and it's all fun in a way so that we don't get bored. But my Zen teacher used to say that if he had to create the universe, if it was possible, he would create it in such a way that some people actually don't have to suffer as much as they have to. Because we have some children who are born in certain countries where, you know, they don't have food to eat. That's a bit too much suffering. So that's what my teacher Jundo usually says. Or if we look at the situation in North Korea, which I told Damien once, because I was reading about it, mothers having to sell their children to China as sex slaves because that's a better life than being in North Korea. It's worse there. I mean, we don't want that much suffering also now. That's a bit too much. So that's what my Zen teacher usually says. We do say accept life the way it is, but yeah, we try to improve it, and that's what Zen is actually. You accept things the way they are, and then you try to improve it at the same time. Because if you just accept, you say, oh no, everything is just the way it is, man. So you won't do anything then, right? So you accept, yeah, so that you drop the resistance. That's what Damien was saying, surrender. And then you try to improve, because you need to improve yourself physically, mentally, in terms of wisdom. You need to constantly improve yourself. And that's what life is, I would say.
There's a paradox in there, but I think many truths are paradoxical.
Yeah.
Underneath it all.
Well, can you repeat your question, Shams? What was your question? There's a thin line between using suffering as a motivation tool and it bringing you down in the hole. Is that more or less what you say?
I was wondering what takes one person to one path and one takes, you know, why one person will grow from suffering and one person will, you know, become immersed in it and kind of like go into the darkness or suffer more. Yeah. As opposed to become stronger and transcend it.
Yeah. You know, there was the evolution of the men with respect to suffering was laid down by Jordan Peterson. I know we both read and know him. I don't know whether Damien knows Jordan Peterson, but you do. Definitely. Okay, so I'll lay down the timeline he describes. So he tells you, and I really love that evolution. I think it's very realistic. So he tells you that, okay, we start the journey as someone who's very naive. Okay, so we go there into the world thinking that, you know, we've got a kind heart and people are going to love us back. And every good thing you put out to the world is going to come back to you. And so basically life is a very beautiful place to be. So we all start the journey like that. Okay. I mean, normal people with a good heart, not psychopath. Okay. So we all start like that. And then in the middle of the journey, life breaks us. Like really, really, really bad. And we become cynical. And we've got the anger and the hatred and all these things, and we close ourselves from the world. So that's the middle part of the journey. And now Jordan tells you that, okay, being cynical and closing yourself to people is a sign of strength. It's better than being naive and people kicking you around and stabbing you the whole time and you saying, oh, why does it happen to me? At least when you're cynical, you stand your ground, you're strong. Okay, so it's better, according to Peterson. But then you end up realizing that you can't live your life just like that. Just being cynical, closing yourself to people, doubting everyone. Just, you know, just not seeing positivity in the world. You can't live your life like that. So what do? That's when you have the third stage of the evolution of a man, whereby you become a monster, because you can't get back being naive, right? And positive, because people are going to slay you again. So you can't go down the hierarchy. You need to go up, but you realize being cynical is not the solution. So what happens is you keep that monster in you. So being cynical, filled with a sort of rage and anger, just like Goggins, Goggins says that he's feeding the dog inside. Okay, so that's the kind of monster we're saying. And Batman also is like that, where Batman is not nice. Actually, when he beats Superman, he tells Superman that, Clark, you deep inside, you're a good man. I'm not. So what he really wants to say is he created that monster because that's the only way you can survive the world. You need to be that monster, but you need to be a monster with compassion, with ethics, and with wisdom. And that's the ideal man, the one who is a monster, meaning, but now I need to elaborate what monster means. Doesn't mean going around and kicking people, right? So what being a monster means is, we need to clarify that. This is going to be a very censored podcast, all right? Yeah, rated or restricted. So what being a monster means that when you see a psychopath, you know this person is psychopath. Now, it seems to be a strong word, but I actually laid down nicely to Shams last week, where you need to realize that there are people with bad intent who are going to cross your path, and you need to recognize those people. So the monster in you actually tells you, like, it's like a voice in your head telling you, be careful with that person. Be careful with that person. So it's not just going there and hugging people and saying, oh yeah, you're all my brothers and sisters. That's nonsense. So you need to have that monster in you, but at the same time, you need to have that compassion, that ethical personality. You still need to be helpful, healthy and helpful. But at the same time, so I think that's where we get that balance between the yin and the yang. So we have that shadow in us. So Carl Jung called that the shadow self. He was a psychologist. And his theory was that when you make the shadow become fully incorporated with your personality, that's where you are a beast and a monster. A monster, when I say monster, I mean, like Goggins says, no one can hurt me. So when you are in that mindset where, you really can't hurt me. You can try, you can't hurt me. But at the same time, it's not making you someone who's not compassionate, someone who's not loving when you have to be loving. And you can feel unconditional love, even for people who try to hurt you. Now, the Buddha is known to be like a stoic. Just look at his responses in the story, right? But there is also a story where his step-cousin tries to kill him. Actually, I don't know whether you know about that, Shams, if you've been reading in that book. So he throws a boulder from a mountain to try to crush him. But while getting excited that, the boulder, so he's watching from the mountain right now, the boulder is rolling. So he gets excited and just to see the Buddha being crushed, and he actually falls down himself. And the Buddha doesn't get crushed. And the Buddha carries him and tries to look after him and nurse him, and all his disciples told him, the guy tried to kill you, and you're nursing him, trying to bring him to life. Then I think his response was something like, yeah, I have to do what I need to do. So no matter what someone is trying to do to you, even if in that story it's like someone trying to kill you, he still keeps his ethics, the way he conducts himself. And we can link that to the discussion we had last week, where that's what the Stoic does. In your control, what do you have? I really control the way I behave, the way I think. What someone is trying to do to me, I've got no control of that. And that's what people get wrong usually. Why is the person doing that to me? You've got no control of that. Don't think about it. Think about what you can do in the situation, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
And the doubting. Oh, go on.
No. I just wanted to mention, like, in terms of like the fine line, Shams, I think what leads you in which way. I think going back to that very briefly, I think it's intention, like how you're going into it, anger, and that leads to that one part. If you're going into it for self growth, self development, then you go and evolve into that path. In terms of like trusting people, I think if you don't trust people, you don't trust yourself. So people that are doubtful of people, or someone that is doubtful of themselves, so then they think everyone else is out to get them. But it's essentially, if you trust yourself, you trust, then you know that whoever's coming along your path is there for a reason, and then you can trust your senses saying, just be wary of that. Not that I don't trust, but I'm wary, I'm aware, and I move forward in that way. And I think in terms of the monster, I think we are multidimensional beings. We everything. So it's just, I think, a matter of what it is that you fuel in terms of which aspect of yourself that you fuel. So we all have some sort of they say there's a Slim Shady in all of us. And that's that in my view is that we are fundamentally, we all have all these different characteristics. What we choose to fuel on a moment to moment basis. Of course, sometimes you get angry and you think, I want to fucking deck that person straight through the face, and that also comes up. But because the Buddha, for example, was able to see, okay, the guy wanted to kill him, he's practiced fueling the side of himself which is in alignment with his truth, that is in alignment with taking action in a more harmonious way, that is not going to affect him, and he's not going to take action in anger, and therefore that leads to that other part that Shams was talking about, anger, hate, and suffering in that space. He'll rather observe it, act neutrally, and respond in a way that, yes, it might be suffering for him to see his brother wanting to kill him, but he sees that it's coming from his brother's perspective, and for his power that he has being a creator, he can say, okay, he is able to, because he hasn't fueled that monster. In fact, he's learned to tame the monster. And when he needs the monster inside of him to respond to certain situations, that needs that monster to respond to the situation, the monster's there, but it's tamed. And that is, I think, this whole self-development is being able to tame yourself, to be able to be calm in all situations, and whatever tools it is that you need, whether it be monster tools, whether it be fighting tools, whether it be peaceful tools, whether it be business, whatever tools that you've acquired and practice, then you are able to better respond. And that's where a self-development person comes in. So in terms of the Buddha, seeing the rock fall down, he was able to step back, look at his brother with compassion and love, and respond that way. And the monster was there watching and ready to attack if need be. It's all just what it is you spend your time practicing and fueling, and then therefore you entertain and become, and that's the reality you create. So yeah, that was just I just wanted to mention that.
No, very true, very true. And also,
I just want.
Yeah. What were you saying, Shams?
Okay, I have the one last thought that I'm going to share, probably last thought, because I think this actually, I found the answer to my question of why, on a simple, to summarize, why some people go into the darkness, they're suffering, and some grow. And I think what it is those who it depends on if you focus on yourself and what you're in control of, which is yourself, or if you focus on the outside.
Yeah.
So if you focus on the things that are out of your control, you'll be angry because it's a frustrating situation. If you focus on yourself in the suffering, then you'll say, okay, well, what can I do? How do I want to feel? And you'll start to grow and change and, tame that monster, as Damien put it. There's a quote from the Tao Te Ching where it says something along the lines of, when someone is kind, I am kind to them. When someone is not kind, I am kind to them, because the nature of my being is kindness. When someone is truthful, the same thing. I am truthful. When someone is not truthful, I am truthful, because the nature of my being is truthful. So it's being like, who am I? And the same with the Buddha. He helped this guy out who tried to kill him, because the nature of his being is selflessness, benevolence, kindness, compassion. Doesn't matter if the other person is compassionate or not, nice or mean, good or evil. That doesn't change who he is. He can only control what his nature is. So yeah, that's kind of my biggest takeaway in this, to summarize it, I feel like. So I wanted to share that.
Yeah. And I'll just also add that, these stories, these tales, we usually talk about that a lot in the Buddhist circle. They have been, throughout time, we've kind of made it a bit mystical, as if the Buddha was always very calm and, nothing happened to him. He never felt something. He was always peaceful. So that's us human beings. We've tried to treat them as gods. So it doesn't mean the Buddha really did things in that way. He was probably very angry that, he tried to kill him and swore at him and then still nursed him, okay? But that part won't be the story. So, we need to keep that into account. Also, a lot of things get diluted, throughout time. When we try to elevate people to, certain status, let's say. But I would add that these emotions, like you said, Shams, I think the people who go to the dark side, they are the ones who, they are feeling all that anger, hatred, and whatever. And they go to the dark side because they don't know what to do with that tensed energy, They need to, I'm hurt, I need to hurt others. And that's where they go on the wrong path and end up destroying themselves, because they end up becoming people who are dysfunctional, let's say, in a way that they will never trust someone, so nothing good will happen to them, and that will fuel their original story that life is not fair. So it will continue to happen to them in their lifetime because they kept that negative energy, and these things will continue happening. And one way of tackling it would be to take all these anger or hurt, pain, whatever you felt, because let's look at Gauguin's story. You can't just detach from what he lived when he was 8 years old and he saw his mother being dragged from the stairs by his father and, by the hair, and the father beating the shit out of the mom and him also. You can't get detached by that as a child. So he used all that anger, that hatred, but he didn't vent that on someone else. What he did is, he used that as energy. He built himself up. And, we all know what he did. He exercised like a mad person, lost weight from being above 200 pounds, get into the Navy, made himself strong physically and mentally. So, and he usually tells that when he's running, he's leaving all that shit in his head the whole time. Whatever his father did, what life did to me, what this person said, like this person called me a nigger, wrote that on my bag. All these things go through his head. But he's not venting that on people. He's using that as fuel to exercise and to get that out of him. So that's the way we need to deal with it. You need to exercise, man. And take that thing out. And use that to get better, let's say.
Yeah, well, imagine that's the thing with meditation, is that if you are predominantly have such dark thoughts and you just sit in observance, it's great. But sometimes it's difficult to detach. And this is where intense, strenuous exercise assists, because you're able to witness it and observe it. But at the same time, you are the pain is burning that up. Those images are there as fuel to a fire, where sometimes if you just sit in meditation, then you're observing it, and that reinforces into your vibration, and it just keeps on coming back, and that becomes your predominant thought, because you're sitting there observing thought and buying into it, and those are very high energy memories and thoughts that can take you into a very dark place. So I think the strenuous exercise, and that where you are really suffering or burning, but that suffering is taking those memories and that fuel and is feeding off that, so that you can witness it, so that when you're sitting in normal life again, those thoughts can come up, but they are so much less like capped, or there's so much less you buy into it. You don't buy into it as much because you've transmuted it. And this is where and if you think about it in terms of the molecular structure of it. Oops, I think nothing's just moving here. The molecular structure of it, if we're 90% water, and you thinking these thoughts, and then you thinking those thoughts of hatred, of anger, of fear, then you're crystallizing your body into that molecular structure. If you know, like, but you look at a snowflake that comes from nature, which comes from unconditional love. It's so symmetric and beautiful.
Yeah.
But the emotions of hatred and fear, and that you need to sweat it out. You need to you need to cry it out. That's why we cry. You need to sweat it out, so that, and then you can take it in again and be reborn. You know, recrystallize yourself in a different way. And this is where he's become such a, let's say, a motivator, because people can, we all have our darkness. So when we watch him and we say, wow, it's amazing what he's done. But he says straightforward, he's just, I've had a crap past, and that guy called me this guy called me this is my motivation. You know, and I've done something about it. I've moved forward. So that's so yeah, in terms of, yeah, I think so yeah, that's just the crystallization part of, that's how I see it with myself. Because, you know, meditation got me into also witnessing thoughts, and buying into thoughts got me into a really dark place, just because of an experience I chose to experience, and I think a theme that I chose to experience. And I think, you know, I can relate to people like Goggins, or because it makes sense, and it's definitely assisted on my journey too. So and we'd say meditation is challenging, but running is a form of meditation. Swimming is a form of everything. The way you live your life is your meditation. So it's just different tools that we have available to us to feel great, to find that feeling of peace, of balance and harmony.
Yeah. I mean, I would just say that we experience the peace and the freedom after the fight, and the fight never stops. So I would think the punchline is, suffering is there. When it comes, we fight it, and then we'll be peaceful. But if we run away from it, if we try to trick our way out of it, no, it's going to bring more suffering. So when it comes, you punch it.
Yeah, but also just another thing to interject, just very briefly, is that when suffering comes, it's embracing. It's like, because, you know, you can fight fire with fire, you know, fighting back, which is but it's like embracing it and working with it, to transmute it.
True. Good point.
And also just we've mentioned this before, but responsibility. Whatever happens out there, responsibility is our ability to respond. So whatever's happening out there, whether it be a challenging situation, the loss of something or someone, or any of these things, it is about responding in a way that's, you know, that's where practice, and responding in a way that is in alignment. So that's where the challenge lies. And then,
I think that's why the symbol of Jesus with the cross is so powerful. To me, it just means that we each need to carry our own burden, just like the Jesus did. And this is the path to liberation, actually, when you carry your cross, let's say. The one will carry it for you. It's you. So that's another way of saying taking responsibility for your life. Go through whatever it's throwing to you, fight it, or like you said, try to see through it also while fighting it. It's not just fighting something. I mean, it's in you, it's part of you. So you need to see through it and try to understand what it's trying to teach you. And there are days you need to run and pour it out, and there are days to reflect. So I think it's both, actually. It's not just one way. Just sitting and meditating won't solve it. Sometimes you need to go and run, make yourself strong physically to tackle whatever life is throwing at you. But we need to reflect deeply also. You can't just fight, and you need to think, okay, what it's trying to teach me. So it's a balance of both. And that's the way out of it. And yeah, it makes you stronger, man. So it's good.
Bottom line.
Bottom line, yeah.
That's a pretty good summary.
Oh, dear.
We should have said that at the beginning.
We
Save
keep the best thing last.
Yes, beautiful.
Yeah.
Love it.
It
No,
was
that's
fun.
true.
Was it more intense than last week, Shams? I don't know.
Beautiful conversation. Last week I was expecting this week to be super intense, but I think last week might have been a little more even. But
It was a bit
both.
more personal, I
Both
would
had-
say, last week.
Yeah, perhaps that
Yeah,
might have been why
yeah.
I'm thinking.
But it was intense today too.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm curious what topic you'll have for us next time.
I'll meditate on that. Oh, when I
Okay.
run, it'll come.
There you go.
Yeah,
Definitely conversations worth having.
Absolutely.
yeah,
No, that's very powerful.
yeah. The sharpening the reflective mind,
Mm.
which is the best state of mind as per Buddhism. I mean, that's the whole purpose of having this talk on Saturdays, actually, the reflecting mind and fine-tuning it. And I think the Buddha also realized that because he had that protocol in the Zen book of practice of monks, whereby you need to sit every day. Before you do your activities, you need to sit meditation every day. And I think it's because the moment you stop practicing, that's where you start losing control over yourself or your thoughts. That's where the inner demons start to get a grip on you. So practice never stops. Exercising should never stop. Meditation should never stop, because you never know what life can throw at you. You need to be prepared for it.
Yeah. Absolutely. But it's the great thing is that we are in we are in a place where we are looking for tools. We have a vast array of tools available to assist us, and people know where they can go and get information to be able to kind of deal with things in a way that's, just to facilitate, going through challenges. And that's why we're so much more connected now. And it's great to have these type of podcasts, because, people can listen and hear and be like, I'm going through a situation where whatever the case may be, and I'm not feeling great, but we are able to say, okay, from my experience, this is the way I would respond to it. This is what I would do. I talk about running. David Goggins talks about running, cycling, or whatever the case may be. But some people find their peace and through like ballet, or we each individuals, we all the ocean, but we are experiencing ourselves as a wave, and the wave is the ocean too. So and from my perspective, me being my wave, like I'm just kind of living my life, and I know what's assisted me on my journey through my challenges, through my beautiful times. And this is why it's great to be able to share and say, what, like these are the tools. This is how I've used them, and people can kind of listen, and they will find their own tools. It's all the answers lies within each and every single one of us. So we are able to kind of like share, hear from their perspective, and plant seeds of light wherever we can, to allow that to keep blossoming and unfolding. And this is what makes these talks so important, because we just having a good time chatting amongst ourselves, and who knows how many people it will like light up and spark up, and that's what makes it so special. So it's cool.
Hey guys, it was a great chat.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome moment. It feels so peaceful talking about suffering. I didn't realize that. Just making it a bit more creepy.
We're